Hello, and welcome back to the AmericaII video series. My name is still John Shar, and I'll once again be your host for this video, where we'll be discussing problem number 3 on the list of the 8 most serious problems facing us in America and what we might do to solve it in a way that keeps it from returning to haunt us every year. The problem for this video will be citizens being systematically excluded from the decision-making process in the most important decisions affecting the outcome of their lives. This video will concentrate on 30 questions whose answers largely determine the outcome of our lives and our families' lives, and also that determine the integrity of the government we've put in place to serve and protect America's citizens and our uniquely American way of life. At present, citizens are not allowed to participate directly in coming up with answers to these questions. Instead, citizens are asked to trust implicitly in elected officials to make these decisions in a way that balances the needs of everyone in our country. For most of the past century, the elected officials have mostly done what they and their biggest campaign contributors personally think would be best without ever actually knowing what their constituents would like to see them do. Most elected officials visit their states at least once or twice for a day or two in any given election year to meet with the citizens. They attend town halls and other staged events where they're mostly preaching to the choir and mostly never have to answer directly questions put to them. Instead, when questioned on a topic, they typically repeat the question back to whoever asked it, and then work their answers around to talking about something they would rather the citizens concentrated on. They seldom, if ever, answer direct questions from their audiences, but instead use their considerable skills in arguing and debating, mostly learning government bodies and law schools, to redirect the audience to thinking about what they would like to talk about instead. The representatives use their infrequent visits back to their home states as a platform for extolling and usually exaggerating their accomplishments as a way of making campaign speeches for their next re-election campaign. I'm not certain, but I don't think any of my representatives have come back to my state more than once in any given year in the past few years. Instead, they have staffs that respond to written questions, whether delivered by the Postal Service or by way of emails or text messages. The responses are almost always in form letters or text messages thanking us for contacting them, never mentioning the question asked, and again extolling the virtues of the politician you contacted and plentiful assurances that the politician you contacted understands the problems you asked about and is working diligently to solve them on your behalf. Many of them end with asking you to concentrate towards the politician's upcoming re-election campaign. Back when our Constitution was being debated, every politician only had one way of communicating with his constituents. Only men could run for office then, like face-to-face meetings and speeches that could subject the politician to either applause, silence, or a chorus of boos and catcalls. In those days, there was no escaping knowing what the citizens wanted done or escaping derision when the politicians didn't follow the will of the citizens he was supposedly representing. The politicians back then could still ignore their constituents and do as they pleased, but in those days, if and when that happened, those politicians were typically voted out of office at the next election, or possibly run out of town on a rail, or tarred and feathered, and then run out of town on a rail. Nowadays, politicians routinely do as they please personally, lie about knowing what their constituents actually want, and have their spin doctors concoct prepared responses that help them deflect direct questions when asked, and then redirect the conversation around to one concentrating on what the politician's favorite talking points are, with little to no time left over for discussion or rebuttal. And the politician then fundraises enough money to effectively shout down any direct questions, and spends the money on 10-second sound bites on TV, where everyone in the sound bite is always smiling and typically gets to stay in office anyway. Times have changed, and not always for the better. Scrolling down the other side of the split screen now is a list of 30 questions of the kind being talked about here. The screen will repeat for as long as this video lasts, so don't worry about having to copy down questions that scroll out of sight. They will be back. In some, perhaps even most instances, our Constitution allows for members of the House of Representatives and Senate to make up laws as they go along to suit themselves, whether a majority of the citizens like the laws they pass or not. Over the years, Congress has been quick to seize upon the opportunity this affords them to make rules that allow them to hide their actions from the citizens in ways that pretty much keep their constituents in the dark about what they do on a day-to-day basis. This was not the intent of the founders, had when they gave Congress and the President the bulk, but not all of the lawmaking powers defined in the Constitution. The founders understood that, as Thomas Jefferson once said, history has shown that even in the best forms of government, those entrusted with power have, in time and by slow operations, perverted it into tyranny. In our Constitution, 3 sources of lawmaking are included that provide the citizens a way to have a direct say in the making, amending, and repealing of laws made by any lawmaking body in our government. 3 amendments in our Constitution provide exclusive and irreversible ways for citizens to make changes to existing laws, propose new laws, and repeal laws they don't agree with. Amendment number 1 of the Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And Amendment number 9 of the Bill of Rights reads, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And Amendment number 10 of the Bill of Rights reads, the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. And Article 5 of our Constitution provides for calling a constitutional convention to make changes to the Constitution whenever a majority of the citizens want to do it, but a majority of the politicians don't want to do it. Excuse me. In our Constitution, one right is reserved solely for the citizens. The Congress does not have this right. The executive branch does not have this right. The Supreme Court does not have this right. Only the citizens have this right, and it is immune from being set aside by any of the other three branches of our government. The initiative petition. At the federal level, initiatives are reserved solely to the citizens. A primary purpose of initiatives is to provide citizens with the ability to change things that the politicians have done that the citizens do not agree with, and to provide a means for citizens to initiate and pass laws that the politicians are unwilling to bring to a vote in the legislature. The U.S. Constitution stipulates that the legislative and judicial processes are all that are available to the federal and state governments for making, amending, or repealing laws. The right to petition government for a redress of grievances is reserved solely to the citizens in the First Amendment of our Constitution. And an initiative petition is just one form of petition available to citizens to use in this regard. There are more than one way to go about submitting such a petition and getting it enacted into law. The simplest way would be to have the citizens en masse sign and submit a petition directly to the president, directing him or her to submit the initiative petition to the Congress to be placed on the next federal election ballot in every state. The president would likely decline to accept the petition or ask Congress to place it on any ballot, anywhere, ever. The president is a politician first, a party member second, and only a distant third, a citizen. Another way that circumvents the whims of the entire existing government, if and when this might happen, would be to have the individual states petition Congress to call a constitutional convention. If 2/3 of the states so petition Congress is obligated to call the convention as soon as possible. This way, the hard way, is outlined in very specific detail in the Toolkit section on the AmericaII.org website. The 30 questions. The 30 questions alluded to at the outset of this video and which are being shown even as we speak on the other side of the split screen are all questions we need to ask ourselves every day, and certainly every election, if we are to accept and pledge ourselves to fulfill the responsibilities that go along with the benefits of being citizens of America. And we need a way to communicate our thoughts to our politicians, always initially assuming that their intention is to implement the will of a majority of our citizens every time they propose legislation or vote to make some proposition into a law that affects every citizen in our country. We should probably give every politician the benefit of the doubt, right up to the point they reveal themselves not to be worthy of our trust. The old saying, it only takes a few bad apples to spoil a whole barrel of good apples, has been demonstrated multiple times to us all over the past few decades at least. We do need to get the bad apples out of the barrels as soon as possible. To make certain we know if, when, and in what areas of legislation politicians have betrayed our trust, if and when that happens, we need to establish a report card system in addition to elections that allows all citizens to compare the politicians' actions to their promises. Again, presuming the actions have agreed to work the will of the majority and not just their own will. Right now, today, the wealthiest among us represent approximately 0.0000009% of our combined population. 3,500 divided by 360 million equals 0.0000009%. The rest of us represent approximately 99.999991% of our combined population. Presently, the country is, with the help of a majority of our politicians, being governed primarily for the benefit of the 0.0000009%. If the 99.999991% want to have an even chance at success, they will need to change the present balance points of power between them and their government. Right now, these 30 questions are being answered solely by a majority of our politicians, primarily to suit their party heads, the president, their biggest campaign funders, their friends, a few foreign government leaders they pal around with, and a few select media network or newspaper owners. A total number of people, including the big spenders, who bankroll the politicians on any given day, now making these decisions on behalf of all of America's citizens is approximately 350 self-interested wealthy people. That is 0.0000009% of America's citizens. And that in turn is only 9/10 of 1% of our combined population. I don't know about you, but I think that on average 350 self-interested wealthy people is too small a majority to be making these kinds of decisions on behalf of all 360 million of us. And I don't think that's what our founders were aiming for when they wrote our Constitution. If America is to survive as a free society long term, we will need to amend our Constitution to allow all citizens who are registered voters to weigh in and vote directly on these kinds of questions going forward. so that laws are enacted to work the will of a clear majority of all of America's citizens. And I guess that's about it for this video. So this is Jack the Turtle signing off for video number 5. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And thanks for caring about our country. Wanting to make it, America, and us, all we can be together. Be well. Be well.